If a dive bar had family, the Pharaoh would have been the red-headed stepchild, or the black sheep, possibly both. The story went that 16 years ago when it first opened, it was supposed to be the Pharaoh, but the sign painter messed up and the original owners just didn't care enough to go back up and add a vertical line with some red paint. The Pharaoh was on its fourth owner now, and each one had cared about the name a little less than the last one. Hector didn't care about the name at all. He'd chosen the bar for the same reasons he chose most places. Cheap booze, low lighting, limited entrances and exits. Probably a fire code violation, but Hector didn't care about that either. At least 3 booths, shallow enough not to get trapped in, which also gave direct line of sight to the main entrance and the back room's swinging door. And right now, out of those things, the only one he cared about was the cheap booze. Over the past 2.5 years, Hector's days had fallen into a nice, simple schedule. He got up with the sun, showered, grabbed a breakfast burrito from one, chosen at random, of the 4 hole-in-the-wall places within a block of his studio apartment. And then he sat on a bus or train station bench, also chosen at random, and ate the burrito. Sometimes, if said form of public transportation came while he sat there, he'd pay cash and ride it for an hour or 2. Hector paid cash for everything. One way or another, at noon, he walked into the Pharaoh just after they unlocked the doors. Then, as they really began, with a drink in one of the 3 booths, with direct line of sight to the main entrance and the back room swinging door. Sometimes he'd let one drink sit for hours, sipping at it as all the ice turned to water in the yellowed double rocks glass. Other times he'd kill an entire bottle before dinner. It all depended on how he'd slept the night before. Usually he killed the bottle. Today had been a rare day so far. Almost 4 in the afternoon, and he'd had only 3 drinks. The whiskey gave the bar a soft edge, rubbing at the shadows like a charcoal artist. It had been, overall, a peaceful day, internally and externally. The first one Hector had experienced in at least 2 months. He raised his hand, signaled Stu at the bar for a 4th drink, and the girl walked in. Hector assessed her, as he did everyone who stepped through the big swath of afternoon sunlight, and paused to let their eyes adjust. He didn't dismiss her because of her clothes. Every item was new. Superhero t-shirt, jeans, red and blue sneakers, sweatshirt, denim jacket, school backpack, and a sparkly, sequin-covered baseball cap declaring Unicorns Rule. Lower-end stuff, but all of it new, barely broken in at all. Despite the hat, because of it really, he was also pretty sure the outfit had been picked to blend into a crowd, to let attention slide off the girl. His attention didn't slide. He put her weight at 53 pounds, 4'4", short, dark hair peeking out from under the cap, closer to a crew cut than a pixie, a decent amount of Latino heritage like himself. Slightly malnourished. She was 12, tops. She blinked twice and looked back and forth across the room. Stu stepped around the bar holding a glass of liquid amber and pointing himself at Hector's table. "What do you want, kid?" The girl looked at him and blinked again. For a moment, Hector thought she didn't understand the man. Then she shook her head and said, "Nothing," in a voice like a stage whisper. "Bathrooms for customers only, and you're too young to be a customer." He stepped past her and delivered Hector's drink to the booth. Hector nodded his appreciation but didn't take his eyes off the girl. She turned her head, pointing her eyes at each of the 7 afternoon patrons. She paused at Hector, then settled on a guy at a tall table near the bar. Hector had never spoken to the man, but eavesdropping and observation had taught him that Jorge worked as a security guard at one of LA's many film studios and was freshly divorced after he caught his wife cheating on him. The girl walked in a wide arc, circled Jorge, and parked herself at the table across from him. She was 2/3 turned from Hector, so he could see her jaw and mouth move but couldn't read her lips. He watched Jorge's expression. The security guard shook his head, then looked back over his shoulder at the bartender. "Kid," Stu's voice hit the loud, slow pitch people somehow thought translated across all languages. "You can't be in here, so get out before I call your parents." She ignored him and walked a beeline across the bar to Hector's booth. He sipped his drink and stared at her. She stared back. If a dive bar had family, the Pharaoh would have been the red-headed stepchild, or the black sheep, possibly both. The story went that 16